There have been some major updates in the court case against Wim Hof. For a quick summary, late last year, 17-year-old Madeline Rose Metzger drowned in a pool in Long Beach, California. Her father, Raphael, believes that she performed the Wim Hof breathing method in their backyard pool. Then she passed out and drowned. The Metzgers are seeking $67 million in damage. This summer, Wim and his legal team filed their first response to the case, putting forward a bizarre argument that borders on perjury. In that filing, both Wim and his son Einem stated that the court didn't have any jurisdiction over them because the Wim Hof method has no business connections in the United States at all. They're a Dutch company, and if someone wants to sue them, they need to sue them in Holland, where, incidentally, the legal system is much more favorable to them. To quote one of Wim's filings, "I have never sold any products or services in California or to California residents. I have never directed any advertisements or marketing products or services to California residents. I have never been a party to any contracts with California residents concerning any products or services. I understand there may be independent third parties who teach the Wim Hof method who are located in the United States. None of these independent third parties are my officers, directors, employees, or agents. None of these individuals have any business or personal relationship with me. I have never provided instruction on health, exercise, and breathing regimen in California." Whoa. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, this statement was an outright lie that Wim gave under oath, which is to say, it's perjury. Not only have I personally taught on stage with Wim in front of a paying crowd of about 300 people in Los Angeles, but Innerfire advertises and sells courses online, and Wim even appeared on an episode of Goop Lab with Gwyneth Paltrow on Netflix, which makes me think he must have signed some contracts along the way. I also found it interesting that Wim would deny having any relationship at all with the 34 Wim Hof method instructors in California, who in many cases he personally trained and is at least friends with. Anyway, it took a few months, but after a further 10 hours of depositions, the court in Long Beach predictably rejected Wim's and Innerfire's claims. The judge wrote that Einem's claim that instructors were, quote, independent parties was, quote, a prime example of having your cake and eating it too, and that Einem's declaration, quote, should not be credited. That's legal speak for nice try, Einem. The order ends with this. Simply put, Hof and Innerfire clearly targeted California with presentations and media appearances in person and through its website. So, the case is going to move forward into the discovery phase, which is a little bit exciting because it means that Innerfire and Wim Hof will be compelled to turn over documents about injuries and deaths that they have known about internally and not disclosed to the public. So far, all of the cases that I've been able to document have come from news reports and tips that people send me. Please keep sending me tips. I believe that the 18 deaths that I know about are a radical undercount of the real number. There could be dozens or even hundreds more. In the past, Innerfire has played fast and loose with the truth. Wim variously claims that he has between 21 and 26 world records, but has never shown documentation for most of those events. There's only one record on Guinness's website. Considering that the word record means written down, it would be nice to see what those records are. After a lot of digging around, I think it's mostly just a made-up number. And if you've been following this channel for a little while, you know that Einem covered up a near disaster on Mount Snezka where 38 Wim Hof method instructors almost died. Einem then tried to frame a rival company once the media caught wind to say that it wasn't Innerfire at all, which is to say, Innerfire, they have a truth problem. My prediction is that their inclination will be to continue lying in the ongoing court proceedings and try to hamper the discovery process. This would be a mistake. A Dutch lawyer recently told me that there aren't serious consequences for lying in Holland's civil court system, where most testimony isn't even given under oath. But it's different in America. Metzger's attorney, Scott Brust, has already filed a motion for sanctions against Wim Hof and Innerfire for needlessly wasting the court's time on what amounts to lies. The court will hear that motion in February of next year, and they're asking for $33,000 in penalties before the trial even begins. Yesterday night, Innerfire sent a newsletter to its instructors, which was as close to an official response to the legal decision that exists. The note suggested that they will try new legal maneuvers to get the case dismissed, while also mentioning that they could use some legal help from someone who understands California law. The newsletter also issued new guidelines to all instructors that they should stop booking large events because those events might harm the reputation of the organization at large. This cuts off a major income source to Wim Hof Method instructors who are already strapped financially. Things do not look great inside the Wim Hof Method. Before I go, I want to make some comments on how I predict this case it might play out. Well, I've documented several instances where individuals have drowned directly after telling a family member or friend that they were performing the Wim Hof Method in their pools. The Metzger case is not as clear-cut. No one saw her drown, the physical evidence is not quite as compelling as it could be, and there were no video recordings of it happening. Metzger's attorney will have to convince the court that it's more likely than not that Madeleine Rose was doing the Wim Hof Method at all. That would be difficult to prove in a criminal case where the burden of evidence is, quote, beyond a reasonable doubt. But in a civil case, the bar of evidence is, quote, a preponderance of evidence, which is much easier to prove. It's saying, like, basically 51% likely, 49% against. That can lead to liability and damages. Since my video, The Rise and Fall of the Wim Hof Empire, came out in June, I've identified 5 additional suspected cases of drowning that appear related to Wim Hof's teachings. This brings the total number of deaths up to 18. And there are an additional 15 cases of injuries, possible drownings, and complications. 3 of those cases show a direct line from purchasing a course to telling someone that they were following Wim's example in the pool and then winding up dead just a few minutes later. In one case, a mother actually saw her son die in front of her. There is a pattern, and I think it's entirely possible that this is exactly what happened to Madeleine Rose, even though there weren't any cameras rolling. Now, just to clarify, no one is saying that Wim Hof personally held anyone down in an ice bath.
But the moment I got there, Wim did not say hello. He literally told me to get into the ice bath. And I did 10 minutes in the ice bath, not because I'm tough, but because he held me down in the ice bath. He is indeed one of the strongest human beings.
Okay, well, at least he's never held someone down in water until they've drowned. What I can say is that the number of injuries, accidents, near drownings, and drownings only seems to be on the rise every year. This happens despite many warnings on his website and even Wim giving verbal warnings in his courses and videos. Those things happen and we will not deny that. But the problem is that Wim continues to casually conflate breath work and water work on podcasts, TV programs, and even in his own training courses. This leads to, at the very least, confusion about the proper way to practice the method. And people are drowning because of it. If you haven't seen it yet, my video, The Rise and Fall of the Wim Hof Method, explains why this is a real problem that we have to take seriously. Until next time, I'm Scott Carney, and this update comes from PokeyBear LLC, serving the global community from Denver, Colorado.